In the many years that I've been coaching voice actors, I can safely say that the number I've met who actually enjoy marketing could easily be counted on one hand with fingers left over. I try not to take it personal. My guest today is a conversion story that I never thought that I would get to share. Someone who couldn't possibly have been more opposed to marketing, who has now become one of marketing's greatest ambassadors. Her friendly, upbeat voice has represented brands ranging from Lego to Duncan to Chevrolet. Welcome to the show, Caryn Clark.
Thanks. It's great to be here. I'm so excited.
Did you ever think that you would find yourself on a podcast talking about marketing?
Sure. Yeah, actually, I have a marketing background. I was opposed to your approach.
I did see that you had a marketing background, and I thought that was very interesting because I knew how opposed you were. And I guess I didn't always specifically know if it was just the way that I was teaching or if it was marketing in general. Sometimes it's hard to tell with voice actors, right? Every voice actor is the same. We just want to be in the booth. We just want to be recording. Can't we just be in the booth and just record it? So I did find it interesting to see that you had a marketing background. And I thought it's, somebody with that background being so hesitant or resistant to marketing themselves as a voice actor. That was interesting. So tell me that story.
So do you remember our conversation? I don't know, 3-4 years ago? You may not. You talked to
I remember I went back and revisited parts of it because I do know that this has been we've been going back and forth for a while now.
I was not an easy sell. And I remember I was like, well, let me, I was part of VOpreneur and, just kind of lurking around. And I was like, what is this playbook all about? And I was like, I really don't want to do that. I don't want to email people any more than I already do.
Right.
I don't want to call people. I don't want to keep track of my emails. Like I
don't want to call people either, just to be clear.
I know, but I did listen to your podcast a couple of weeks ago with Brian about cold calling. And I actually made a cold call that day. So, I tried it out. It was a warm call, but anyway, I was like, so I remember I talked to you for like 15 minutes or so, just your free consult. And I was like, yeah, I remember. It's like, I just don't think this is free. And you said, this isn't going to be for you. If you're not willing to do X, Y, and Z, then this approach isn't going to be for you. And I said, yeah, it's not.
Which is also, to be clear, part of the beauty of all of this. And it's something that I've said for a long time is there's no one right way to market your voiceover business. I teach several different strategies and I try to adapt what I teach to the individual and what works for them. But that's part of the beauty of this is I'm never going to tell you the only way to successfully grow your voiceover business is to do email marketing and to do it in this way. And if you do anything else, then you're just wasting your time. Like it's just because it's not true. Right. I know people who crush in-person networking, people who crush cold calling, people who are doing amazing things on all the different social media platforms, email, whatever it is. And that's part of the beauty of this is somewhere in the midst of all of the tools that are available to us as voice actors, there's probably a tool that will resonate with each person in how they can use that to market themselves.
Right, exactly. And so I was, I built my business. It'll be 17 years this week. But 20 years that I started, I built it on pay-to-plays, Voice123 and voices.com. I would just went in there and hammered away and auditioned like nuts until I landed some big stuff. And then I marketed myself through postcard marketing back in the day until I got other people's attention and gained some agents and things like that. And that's how I built my business and my repeat clientele. Unfortunately, the pay-to-play landscape has changed a great deal.
Yeah.
And it's really just not, it's a viable option for a select few, but for the majority of us, it's not. I don't believe so anyway. And that was a hard pill for me to swallow. That took me a couple of years to admit this isn't working for me. I mean, I was up to $2,200 on Voices or Voice 123 and, paying that membership fee and doing almost nothing. And I was on the platform for 19 years. So
You started on the pay to plays because it was around 2007. Is that correct?
yeah, I think I joined Voice 123 in 2005.
Okay. So you started, you were maybe a little bit ahead of me because I think I was probably around 2007 or 2008, maybe. I think I was in somewhere in there. But that stretch, kind of up until about 2012,
Mm-hmm.
I always called that the glory days of online casting.
Yeah.
Like that's literally when it felt like anybody could go on there and with minimal effort, you could pull in 15 or 20 grand at least.
Yeah.
And if you were really good and knew exactly what you were doing, there were voice actors who were making six figures exclusively
Mm-hmm.
from online casting. But part of the reason why I started learning how to market was because even as far back as 2012, I saw things starting to shift a little bit, and algorithms and double dipping, and now we're triple dipping on some of these casting sites. And I'm like, everybody just wants my money. I'm like, I want to work with somebody directly. I don't want to have to jump through so many hoops. And so I saw that starting to shift. And so that's when I started figuring this out. So I don't think I've had an active casting site membership since, I don't know, like 2016 or 17 or something like that. Because it was different.
Yeah, I was good till about, I think I left Voice 123 in about 2012, and it was only because I was like, well, I'm not auditioning. I was really busy.
Yep.
And I was like, I don't need this, so I'm going to give it up. And I did. I had a free profile, but I gave it up till about 2019, and I went back on and did okay. I did quite well, actually. It wasn't to sustain me. It was just to sort of add to what else I was doing. But then really 2021 or so, it just started going downhill, and I'm like, what is going on? Now, keep in mind, I had the 395 profile, right? So I was like, that's all I ever did. And then I think in 2020, it was last summer, I bumped up, I don't know, maybe it was, I don't know, but I bumped up to 660, whatever, and 888. Yep. And then in December, I bumped up to the 2,200 after talking to some people who were like, that's where you need to be. I was like, all right, I certainly don't mind investing the money if it's worth the ROI, I'll do it. But by February, March, I was like, what in the world is going on? And I had a meeting with them because, I felt like as a member of their casting site for 19 years, I deserved a little attention.
Sure.
Plus
I don't think that's unreasonable.
I even sent an email to Rolf and he never answered me. They listened to me. They refunded my money. Even though I was outside the realm of being refunded, I put my foot down and said, I'm not doing this, and you're going to give me my money back. I had talked to a lot of talent. It's just a mess. So anyway, that's when I decided I have to do something else. I got to change my strategy. And so maybe Mark isn't so far off.
I think for voice actors who have been at this for a while, there's almost a natural progression that happens where we grow our business, we get our business really cooking. When our business is really cooking, we become obviously very busy. We've got a lot of clients to service and a lot of projects coming in. And so the very first thing that we neglect is all of the things that we did to grow our business to that level in the first place. But eventually you get on the other side of that. You crest the mountain, and then you start to come down. And so I've noticed in my business as a coach, I've noticed I'm working with a lot of newer talent who are trying to figure it out. But I've also noticed working with a lot of veteran talent who kind of went over that crest and started coming down on the other side, and what they were doing before, either what it's not working anymore, or they acknowledge that I stopped doing the things that built the business, and now I got to kind of start over again. And if you're not constantly keeping that pipeline full, you run the risk that there will become a point where the pipeline is suddenly very, very empty. Clients come and go.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So when I first started, of course, like I said, the paid plays, and then I marketed that, right? I did postcard mailings. My agents did, I hired them to do emails to their lists of clients. None of that was terribly productive, but I thought it would be. I did what I needed to do.
Yep.
And then I got really busy in 2010 and it just took off from there. And I stopped marketing. I had just gotten divorced. I was traveling a lot. I was having a great time. And then I met my now husband and became a stepmom. And so things kind of took a back burner and I really didn't market or keep up with it. Right. I didn't even, I have a client list on MailChimp. That's where I kept my client list. I didn't even contact people. The only time I ever contacted people was when I was booking out. So maybe twice a year.
Yep.
Never talked to them. I didn't want to bother people.
Yep.
That was kind of my strategy was, well, I'm going to leave you alone. I don't want to bother you. I know you're busy. And you'll call me when you need me. And then things kind of started dying down a little bit, pandemic time and a little after that. And I was like, oh, this is not good.
It sounds like a good strategy when you think about it from that perspective. And your perspective is, it's one that I hear every day. I don't want to bother people, so I'm just going to leave them alone. When they need me, they'll reach out. I'll be here. They're aware of me.
Right.
And that sounds logical until you realize that on the other side of that, there are voice actors who are consistently reaching out, are consistently staying top of mind. And so when those people need a voiceover, are they thinking of you or are they thinking of whoever contacted them last?
Right.
And if whoever contacted them last contacted them a week ago and you contacted them 6 months ago.
Right. And I had a LinkedIn profile, obviously, since the beginning of time. And I know, I would go on there and there would be birthday messages from 6 months ago that I had never answered. That's how often I went on LinkedIn, was like twice a year. And I was like, I think it was a year ago, January. So about 18 months ago or so, I decided I got to hit that up. I got to start really focusing on that. And I have really focused on my social media strategy, posting regularly, on LinkedIn, especially, on creating relationships through LinkedIn, making sure that I am connected to everyone on LinkedIn that is my client, especially because, when people move jobs, they're not going to tell me, they're not going to email me, right? But I'm going to know because on LinkedIn, they're going to change their job and then I can keep up with that, right? So, LinkedIn's become a huge part of my strategy. And that was before I have participated in Playbook, of course, but I will say, Playbook has really helped me with ideas and, just general strategy and really permission. Oftentimes all we need is somebody to say, it's okay to do that.
It's okay. Go ahead and try reach out. Yeah. It's okay to send a follow-up. It's okay to, hey, it's okay to have a bad post even,
right. Yeah, exactly. So you give people, voice actors everywhere, this permission to do the work, right? Do the thing, as you say. So, it really does help. And last week I had 3 new clients. Now I will say, I approached, a lot of them are political. So that's kind of like low hanging fruit right now. Right. I mean, it's
but don't discredit that because it wouldn't have happened if you hadn't gone out and done it.
Exactly.
Right? Who cares if it's low hanging fruit? I care at the end of the day, did the check clear? Like that,
right.
Did I book the job? Did the check clear? That's what matters to me. So you wouldn't have had those opportunities if you didn't go out and pursue those opportunities. When I watch you market yourself online, because you really have started popping up in my LinkedIn feed a lot more. I see you around and I just think she's a complete natural. You really do a fantastic job of letting people see that we see your personality, we see you being personable, relatable, but still simultaneously you add value to your audience. You still slip in the plugs for the voiceover every once in a while without being really salesy about it. So how did you get there? Is it
it did not come naturally. So learning
It
how to
feels
write.
like it did, just so you know.
Well, I do have a writing background. So there's that. Like I can write a social media post rather quickly and it just comes to me, right? But knowing what to post where did not come naturally. I really struggled with LinkedIn for a long time because my big thing was, what value am I going to add to an advertising agency exec?
Right.
Like, I don't really know their business and I would never proclaim to know their business. That's why they do what they do. Creatives are amazing people. I'm just a voiceover. What do I have to offer them? So it took me a long time to figure that out, but I think I have. I mean, I certainly, my insights say that, I'm getting a lot more touches and views and all that.
So how did you get there though? Was it, I'm just going to start posting and just figure it out? Was it,
I paid attention. I mean, I read through posts. It's really silly. I don't like talking about myself. That's one thing. I don't like really
you and every other voice actor, as I've come to learn.
I don't
over
know.
the
There's
years.
a lot of voice actors that like to talk about themselves, but
well, they
I
don't
know.
like to do it. Some of them do it because they know they have to do it, but they're
Yeah.
silently in the background being really bitter about it. I don't want to talk about myself.
I don't like posting pictures of myself. I don't mind a good photo shoot, but I don't like, putting pictures up. But the thing that gets the most attention are pictures of yourself.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, but whatever. So I post pictures of myself. I should do more video, and I try. And my husband even bought me a tripod and all of this stuff. And I haven't really touched it, but I need to. Like, that's a goal.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I just kind of practiced. Instagram is really tough. That's a tough nut to crack, and I haven't quite succeeded with that. And even with Playbook, listening to your social media advice, I did some ads on Instagram, and it wasn't. I don't know. Maybe I'll play with it a little more.
You got to really be able to find the exact right audience, and that can be tricky.
I want to do ads on LinkedIn, but holy Moses, I need a degree to do that. But they sent me something where it's like, learn how to do ads on LinkedIn. So I need to take some time and watch that and study it, because that is, it's pretty complicated.
It's easier than you think. And it's a really smart place to run ads because you can get so targeted with your audience.
Right.
So when you're putting your posts together, are you thinking about, do you have like a customer avatar that's in your head? Like you're picturing, this is the video producer, or this is the instructional designer, or this is the ad agency, or whatever. And you're picturing them and you're trying to figure out what would be interesting to them, or how do I relate to them? Is that kind of what your process is?
Sort of. I mean, it's kind of weird. Like I said, I dream about marketing. That's not a lie. I literally do.
I love that.
Like, I'm in this hazy waking stage. I don't get up till 7, but around 4 a.m. I might stir, and I'm realizing I'm thinking about what I'm going to post on the socials when I wake up, and what my strategy is going to be.
You're going to be my first member.
And I'm like, where is this coming from? But I'm so excited to do it and figure out something that's going to attract people, that I'm like, oh, how can I word that? Like, and it's usually something that, is appropriate, or a problem, if you will, or a conflict to most people. I try to keep it kind of basic and common. But I word it in such a way, you figure out, you have to have your first line, which is sort of the hook. And then you get people to keep reading after those 3 dots. And yeah.
It's the problem solution.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
And I think there is a formula. There is a formula that I think that you can use. And I think that's where a lot of voice actors get it wrong, because we'll just go on and say, here's my brand new demo. And if you need a voiceover, blah, blah, blah. But if you present a problem solution, is this your struggle? Here's how I can solve it.
Right.
Here's my demo. That totally changes the dynamic of the post. And I think it changes how people will interact with it. And it's something that you do really well.
Thank you. Because that's what you have to do. You have to think of, what do they need and how can I help them? I always look at things in a way of, how is what I'm going to say going to be helpful to them? Or how can I offer my business, but in a way that's helpful to them.
Yeah.
For example, I see posts all the time and I'm like, ugh, um, here's my warm-up strategy. Here are some tongue twisters. Nobody cares. Okay. The people you're trying to attract don't care about the tongue twisters you're using every morning to warm up. They don't care. I should look back at some of my posts to see what I have posted lately, but I did
So
post.
do you pay attention to do you go back through and look and see, okay, this one really worked.
Yeah.
What was it about that one that really worked? Or this one fell flat. What
Yes.
was it that I can discern that is why that one fell flat? Do you think through that
Yes.
much, or are you just kind of going?
Oh no, I look back at them and I look to see what worked well, what fell flat. Generally something, if I post a demo or something, that's pretty much going to fall flat, right? Nobody cares, right? Here, like I did one on words of affirmation, and a client, gave me a nice email. It may have been how I worded it. It may have been that my post was too long, but that didn't get a whole lot of attention. Announcing that I got a new agent, that did get a lot of attention. I was pretty surprised about that. But then you have to think, who is it getting attention from? I don't really care about voiceover talent, right? I mean, I do. I love my friends, but
getting 100 likes from voice actors is not getting you in front of potential buyers. Yeah.
Right. Things like, why are you on LinkedIn? That was a good post, and that was actually prompted by somebody who was complaining about people cold emailing them.
People on LinkedIn absolutely hate being cold sold.
Right. What did they call it? Oh, what was it? I did the hashtag here.
It's one of the things that you have to
pitch
be very
slap.
cautious
They
of.
called it a pitch slap.
Oh, I like that. That's a good one.
And I was like, oh, well, and basically they were like, somebody contacted me and they're like, how can I help you? Are you going to pitch slap me? And she's like, no, but then she did. Right. And I get it. It's annoying. We all get them. But instead of reporting the person to the authorities, if it's an email kind of thing, or, you know what I mean? Like, just ignore it. Just ignore it. Not everybody has the training or the knowledge, or they're just kind of trying to figure it out. I can tell you, I've sent some pretty bad emails and made some pretty bad posts.
It is a wonder that I ever was able to build my business at all. If I look back at what I was doing in the early days and the emails that I was sending, and you don't know what you don't know, right?
Right.
But I had to start.
Right.
You got to start somewhere, and hopefully, if you're working at it, you get better over time. So I'm curious. I mean, you touched on this a little bit, but one of the things that I have always found with Playbook, part of my data always shows me that, generally speaking, most people don't get the course until their third or fourth exposure. And so that means that for some people, it's like 2 years from the first time they see it until they make the decision to buy. And in most instances, it's not specifically a hesitancy towards the course, or it's more of a hesitancy just towards marketing in general. So you talked about, I didn't really want to bother people. I don't want to feel like I'm always up in their face or whatever. Was that a part of your hesitancy? Was it just you were very comfortable with how you did it before? You didn't want to try to do it a different way? What's your story of how you convinced yourself to start doing the marketing?
Well, it's an example of exactly what you're teaching people to do. So I think for me, it was 4 years. And like I said, we talked and I said, it's not for me. But then I just don't like being sold to, and nobody does. Right.
Yep.
And I am kind of a curmudgeonly old lady. I really don't like being sold to. However, and everybody's out there selling something, especially in voiceover.
Yep.
And that's a whole other tangent I can get off on. It's completely annoying to me. Everybody has a course. Everybody's, it must be really easy to create a course. I don't know, but everybody has one.
It's really easy to create a course. It's not really easy to create a good course, but you don't have to create a good course in order to have a course that you can sell to someone.
Exactly. So anyway, But as I got to know you on your VOpreneur group, just in general on socials, and really, I'll tell you, the clincher was what really brought it home, Mark, was I took your Christmas marketing course through Everett Oliver, and I was feverishly writing down things as you were talking. And by 10 minutes in, I was like, I've already made my $60 back. Like, this was worth it and then some. And not that course wasn't just about holiday marketing. Those tactics can be used all
Carry
year
over.
long,
Yep.
right? So I was like, wow, all right, this guy knows what he's talking about. And, you know, I need to listen. Plus, I had some friends who took your course. I was like, well, yeah, okay.
So tell us about something that you've tried, a marketing effort that you've tried, maybe not necessarily an email, because I know you try a lot of different things, but something that you've tried that would have been, a year or two ago, you would not have tried it
Oh,
because you were very set, right? But
yeah.
now you've learned some different things. Tell us a story about one of these things that you tried that worked, and you're like, wow, that worked.
Yeah. So emails, but like using a CRM. I kept a spreadsheet, and actually I probably had 20 spreadsheets on my hard drive. Like, because I would just start over and you can't keep up, and this one's for political and this one's for commercial and this one's for video production houses, and it just got so convoluted. Um and then I would just not take the time. I wouldn't block the time off, right? So in using a CRM, I'm able to keep my lists of people straight. I'm
Yep.
able to create email templates so I know what emails I've sent to people. I can see who's opened them, who's responded, the conversation I had. It's just a much easier way to keep track of things. And I was very against it. I did not want to use a CRM.
So what CRM are you using, and how did you settle on it?
Well, and I don't know if this is officially a CRM, but it's Apollo. Now,
Okay.
I looked
Yep.
at several. I did look
Yep.
at Nimble. I met with their person for 30 minutes and, I test drove it. I found it, for me, it was really hard to upload the lists, the CSV files. I kept getting errors and all that. I was just like, ugh, this is,
Mapping the fields. It's a nightmare.
yeah, it was a real pain in the butt. So, but with Apollo, it's super easy. I didn't have any issues mapping fields, really. I mean, I figured it out. There was another one I looked at. I don't remember what it was. Oh, HubSpot. There might have been one other, but yeah, for now it's Apollo. And I mean, I lightly use it, but at least I'm able to keep track and I can find people,
Yeah.
and I can interface through LinkedIn, and, I'm making sure I'm making those connections everywhere, and I'm following up on LinkedIn. That's my strategy. I sort of do it backwards from you. I connect on LinkedIn and then send them a message versus sending them an email first and then connecting on LinkedIn.
Well, I think there's a case to be made for both, and I do both ways as well. I think if I can see that somebody's very active on LinkedIn, I'm going to try to reach out to them there first because I feel like I got a higher probability of getting through. Whereas if I can see somebody who, they haven't posted any content in 6 months, or, doesn't look like they're very active on the platform, then I'll try email, and then I can use LinkedIn as a follow-up strategy. But it sounds like to me like LinkedIn is kind of your social media of choice. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I mean, I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram, but like I said, that one's tough. And I'm not, I know people who have gotten business from Instagram.
Yep.
But I feel like LinkedIn, it's like shooting fish in a barrel.
You're connected with a whole bunch of other professionals,
Yeah.
and you know exactly the audience that you're getting when you're on that platform. So I'm curious now that you've started doing some of these different forms of marketing. You mentioned you tried a cold call, or I guess a warm call. You've done your email. So all of these fears that you previously had about annoying people, or which is what caused you to just leave them alone before, have any of those fears proven to be true, or did you realize
nobody's been mean?
Nobody's been mean to me.
Nobody has been mean. And so, for example, in the political arena, I partnered up with someone about a year ago, we created a little website for just he and I to focus on marketing to political folks in our demographic, if you will. And so for a year, we've been slowly emailing those people. He called them at the onset, and every so often we email. Well, after excuse me, last week, I sent an email individually to each of them and got a job. I mean, we had contacted her 4 times. She did respond other times and said, "I'll keep you in mind," so on and so forth. But yeah, and I mean, from that particular marketing strategy with my partner, I've probably landed 3 or 4 new clients that way. And we're not just through political season yet.
We're just getting started with political
Right.
season now. Everything, that whole game is about to change
Right.
significantly. So I think what people need to understand is when you are targeting the right people with the right message, that's the difference. The reason why, for a lot of us, the reason why marketing feels annoying is because for me, it's when somebody is cold emailing me with a product or a service that has nothing to do with my business.
Right.
When you're just throwing the spaghetti at the wall to see what will stick.
Right.
And I think if you're being smart with your targeting, if you're targeting producers or creatives, agencies, or instructional designers, whatever, that use voiceover or have a high probability of using voiceover, then as long as you're targeting them with a good message, you're not being annoying because you're presenting them with a service that potentially adds value to what they do. And that's the difference. And so it's all about that perspective of how you think about things.
And it takes a little time. It takes a little research. It does take time. I mean, but I will say, for anybody who's sort of starting out and they're scared, start with the easy stuff. Like, I basically have started with my alumni association. I went to the University of Florida. I have a huge alumni network. I have made some great contacts through that network. Some pretty, big deal people. And I mean, have I gotten any work yet? Not quite, but I'm confident I will. And that's easy because it's an easy, hey, we're both Gators. I checked out your site. What amazing work you've done. Like, this video, man, that was on point, and kind of say why, and I always get I generally get a response. I shouldn't say always. But yeah.
There's a common theme though. You've already got a connection to them just by the nature of the Alumni Association. That's why I often talk about, market in your community because you've got a connection, because you're in the community. Market to your Alumni Association because you've got a connection, because you went to that school. Market in your sector if you previously were employed in I worked in finance, or I worked in IT, or I worked in whatever. Market in your sector because you've got a way to make an instant connection and develop an instant rapport with those people.
Well, and the other thing that you suggest, which I don't want to give away too many of your secrets, but I also really like, and also you just gave me permission to do it, was marketing to people that have to do with things that I have an interest in. So my husband's in law enforcement, right? I obviously have a huge interest in law enforcement and helping law enforcement. I also love doing e-learning and trainings. So I'm trying to contact first responder training companies, right? Because I have a self-interest and I understand. So, and it's funny, my husband was just doing a training last week and he sent me a video of the audio, and it was horrendous. And I was like, man, I would make that sound so much more interesting, I got to find the right people to contact, which
we've all had those moments, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So you said in a testimonial that you provided that I've found I really enjoy networking and learning about people.
I do.
Tell me more about this. How are you doing it? What are some of your favorite ways of connecting and doing that networking and, building those relationships?
Well, like I said, through my alumni association. So there was a lady that I contacted a couple weeks ago, and she lives in New York, and she's a producer for Investigation Discovery and some of those other channels. And I was like, well, that's really cool. And I said, I used to live in New York. I said, did you ever go to any of the Gotham Gator Club football watching parties? She's like, oh my gosh, yeah. And we graduated around the same time. And, we exchanged messages back and forth. And lo and behold, the next time I'm in New York, we're gonna go to lunch. Um, you know, she's a really cool lady. We've never even met. But it was just through LinkedIn. Or there's a gentleman who works at Universal. I think he's the main creative director there. Man, his LinkedIn profile was so funny. He was just, some creative people, they just got it. They're just funny and witty and, and you can tell. And I was like, man, nobody could top that profile. Right. And he was like, well, thanks, and he keeps me in mind, so yeah.
Sometimes I think that people put stuff into their LinkedIn profile just to see whether or not anybody will actually read and actually notice.
And I think so too, which is why I went through and cherry picked some things further down that were a little special and niche, So I was like,
I am the exact same way. I am always looking for that one nugget where like, it's almost like they just threw in a random sentence that was completely unrelated to anything just to see. And then if you happen to be the one that notices and you mention that when you reach out, you just opened up the door to the conversation. That's what you get for putting in a little bit of effort and trying to make that interaction a little bit more personalized.
And the other thing is I keep in touch with my, let's say, old clients. There are people who haven't hired me in a long time, right? But I still comment on their things and their videos and their work and, keep in touch. I might send a little private message when something is exceptional or, to stay top of mind. It doesn't mean they hate me. It just means they don't need me right now. And that's okay. They will someday.
And as long as they are allowing your emails to still land in their inbox,
right,
then they're still interested. And I've had that. I did a job not that long ago for somebody that I hadn't heard from in like 3 years, like nothing, no response to anything, still sent regular emails just to stay top of mind or whatever. And then one day he's like, hey, I got this thing. I think you're the perfect fit for it. I'm like, done. Let's do it. Right. You never know. And so much of it. And I think that's why I even in Playbook, I put in a module specifically on mindset, because so much of how we approach this and whether we're going to win or lose has to do with our mindset. So what do you say to the person who's listening right now, who is maybe they're in the shoes that you were in, whether they are fearing it, avoiding it, procrastinating it, stressing over the idea of marketing, whatever it is, whatever their reason is, but they're avoiding doing what they know they probably should be doing. What do you say to that person that helps them to overcome and actually do the thing?
I had dug my heels in so hard. I was not gonna do this. I wasn't. Just not.
Yep.
Baby steps, just try it. It's really not bad. And people are generally nice. Like I said, I've never had a mean email yet. Sometimes, people don't answer. That's okay. But just give it a try and do something that you're comfortable with and just take small chunks. But you give so many great ideas and so many great strategies in that course. Like, I'm loaded up for years to come. I don't even have enough time to do it all. I need to hire a virtual assistant, which I appreciated that course as well, because it's giving me permission. Just take little chunks. Just give it a try. But I mean, the investment in your course is worth it 1,000 times over.
So what's your favorite or one of your favorite self-marketing successes? What's a job that you've landed or a client that you've landed recently since you started embracing this a little bit more, where you're like, oh, this was amazing? Or this a really cool opportunity that you created for yourself, a really great connection that you've made, whatever. What's one of those? Give us one of those stories.
I would say, goodness, the 3 last week were amazing. I mean, those were all just by connecting either through email and or LinkedIn and commenting on things, creating relationships, asking questions, making good comments. It's really important to make good comments too, by the way. But I would say last week, so just because it's top of mind probably, I sent an email and to the political list. Lady got back. She's like, I have an audition for you and your partner. Client doesn't know if they want male or female. I was like, all right, it's on. Game on, my friend. So we auditioned against each other and they chose a female. And I mean, this all happened within a couple hours.
Yep.
And, bing, bang, boom. We didn't even talk money, right? I didn't even mention a rate. And then when it came down to it, I was like, oh man, this is the worst part, right? Like we didn't talk rate. It worked out just fine. Like I quoted my rate, they were fine with it, and we're done. And it's a fairly decent campaign, and I'm sure there will be more work to come in the next 4 months. I'm certain of it. And going through that list, I mean, yeah, I honestly, how can I say this? I think that nobody cares about you and your business more than you do. So you can have, and I love my agents and I love the opportunities that they bring me through auditions and work.
Yep.
But they have so many people on their roster.
Yeah, there's 50 or 100 other people that they got to care about too.
Right?
Yeah.
And I do look for smaller roster agents. Like I don't want to be on a roster of 400 people.
Yep.
But nobody cares about you more than you.
Yep.
So marketing yourself and getting your own work versus paying someone to do it for you they're just wanting to make the money. They don't care who books the job. Whereas you care that you book the job. That's really important. I mean, that's key. I'm not saying don't use agents. And I like I said, I love my agents. I just added a new one. But yeah, do it yourself.
It's a totally valid take. It's a totally valid reminder that,
Same way with managers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nobody cares more about your business than you do. What I love about it is that the things that you did that led to these successes are not hard things.
No.
Send an email, drop a LinkedIn comment, make a LinkedIn connection request. Like it's not hard things. We're not, building rockets here.
No, it's time consuming, and you have to care about somebody else other than yourself, right? Like you need to care about the video that they created and really try to find the finer things that they did to make the video awesome or whatever it is, the commercial. But that's not so hard, and if you love your job, you're going to love watching those videos and those commercials and all of that. So,
and being excited about the opportunity that potentially awaits for you on the other side.
Exactly. I will say, I think voice talent, we're kind of like, we must be gamblers, like have that addictive gambler personality, because it is kind of like playing the lottery. Like you're just you're throwing it out there and you're like, one of these is going to stick.
Yep.
And that's kind of how it is in a way.
Well, Caryn, this has been really fun and insightful because I work with people on a daily basis who are coming from where you came from, and I understand. I mean, that's where I was. I wasn't born the marketing guy. Like when I first started, I didn't have a clue. I was completely opposed. I did everything wrong. Like literally made every mistake in the book. That's where I learned how to not do those dumb things or how to do it better or how to find a better way. You're somebody who has, got out of your own way and you're doing it on a daily basis now. You're doing a fantastic job of it. It's working. You're living proof that it's possible. When you figure this out and you embrace it, you really do take the limits off your potential.
Right. I mean, I guess, advice would be don't be stubborn. Like, I'm pretty stubborn, right? Stop being so stubborn and open yourself up to ideas. I mean, obviously, like I said, everybody's out there selling a course and all that. But I can't thank you enough for offering this course. Like, it is a gold mine. It really is. I mean, I know this is like so cheesy. It is a freaking gold mine of information. Everybody, I seriously, and I'm not being paid for this, you guys. Like, this is, as a matter of fact, that affiliate link, I said I would donate that money. Like, I don't.
Well, I certainly appreciate that. I just want people to hear your story. And you don't take my marketing course. Take somebody else's marketing course. Don't take a course. Buy a book. Listen to a podcast. Like, however it is that you figure it out. But I just want people to hear stories of people who have found a way to build their own success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm really grateful that you did that. Well, there's one more thing that I want to acknowledge you for. You shared a quote on your website that said, "You can never be too early, but you can be too late." My wife and I almost never argue. Like, it's almost creepy that, like, we almost never argue. But if there is an argument that happens in this house, I can guarantee you that it's because we have to be somewhere and she is not ready yet.
Really?
And she's been told, like, I'm at the point now where I'm like, if I want to leave at noon, then I tell her that we have to leave by 11:30.
Well,
Like,
that's a good strategy. Yeah.
See? But when I read that, I just started laughing. I was like, you can never be too early.
And
but you can be too late. And my whole life, I've had that philosophy. If you're not 15 minutes early, you are late. Like,
right. Which today I was like, I was like, well, I'm going to just be relaxed about this. But yeah, no, and my husband laugh about it all the time because that's what I say to him. I'm like, let's move it. I need to be early everywhere. I'm a weirdo.
I love it. All right. Well, I know that your objective with social media obviously is to connect with potential buyers, but I think there are some voice actors who might be able to learn a thing or two about how to do social media from seeing some of the things that you do on social media. So how do we find you?
Well, I'm the hip chick voice. So that's generally my handle everywhere. Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. I'm not on X and I'm not on TikTok. But Caryn Clark, my first name is Caryn, Clark, Clark, and that's my website too, CarynClark.com. So yeah,
Perfect.
Hit me up.
We'll put all that in the show notes so that anybody can find it. Well, Caryn, thank you so much for sharing your story. I love the fact that you dream of marketing. We joked about that before.
I was like,
I'm going to get a T-shirt made. And
I love it so much. I dream of it. I just can't believe I wake up and I'm like, what am I going to do today? Who am I going to contact? What's my strategy? What's happening today?
And I bet you always have really good ideas too.
Sometimes I lack, but maybe.
But you stay open.
Yeah. You
stay open to it.
Yeah, of course. Well, that was actually one of my New Year's resolutions was stay open to things and say yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I am kind of amazed sometimes at the ideas I come up with. I'm like, wow, where did that come from? It's like in this sleepy haze. So, yeah.
I dream marketing. Yep.
Thanks
That's definitely
to Mark
a T-shirt. All right, Caryn. Well, thank you so much for your time and thank you for sharing your wisdom and your story. And I know that it is going to be an inspiration to a lot of voice actors who are either where you were or are trying to work through that transition that you worked through and seeing how you've been able to embrace it and make such a big difference in your career it's gonna be inspiring for them. So thank you for that.
Good. Well, and thank you because you're the one that created it all. So